There's nothing quite like the feeling of having a studio filled with well-stretched and prepared canvases. On the easel are some impressively sized canvases. They're prepared and primed and will be drying for a while. Getting to this point is more involved than just slapping a coat of acrylic primer onto raw canvas. I'd like to show you a few studio tricks that will produce a much stronger canvas. Canvas free from those lumps and bumps that always seem to be in the worst places, like the cheek of a portrait, and probably add another 100 years to the life of your canvas. Let's start with linen, although you can use properly treated cotton duck or the practically indestructible new polyester canvas. I know, polyester raises images of leisure suits, but trust me, this is one of the most stable fabrics on the market. For this demo, we'll concentrate on linen, which is the gold standard and has been around for centuries due to the strength of its very long fibers, although hemp fibers are even longer. Linen is made from the stem of the flax plant. Linseed oil is made from the seeds of the flax plant. And while this sounds like a match made in heaven, the reverse is true, because the nature of the plant is for the seed oil to eat away and rot the stems. As artists, our job is to protect the linen fibers from ever coming into contact with linseed oil, or the canvas will rot. These days, we artists have a broad choice of different grades, weights, and weaves of linen. Some projects call for coarser and heavier linen, whereas other projects do better with a thinner, finer woven canvas. No matter what your choice is, there will always be those bumps. They're called slubs, and this is where the fibers end and others begin. At times, these can be rather pronounced, such as we see here. If you think these add charm to a painting, well, good luck. But for most of us, these are as unwelcome as a pothole in the road. When you buy linen, it looks smooth and it looks even, and that's because it comes off looms, and when it's wet with sizing, it's run through heated rollers. That helps to minimize any of those lumps and bumps. The problem is those irregularities begin to appear as soon as you wet it. Even worse, the factory sizing is meant to make the fabric look good in the store, so it's a bit of trickery in that most of the commercial fabric sizes are also plastics, so no one knows how well the glue size is going to adhere to the slippery plastic size. Okay, I know. You'd rather just charge full bore at the canvas with your brushes blazing. But what we're talking about here is doing it the right way. Let's face it, you don't need any talent or smarts to do it the wrong way. What follows is the biggest step in the process, and I won't kid you, the whole thing is labor intensive, but the results are well worth it. The first thing I like to do is fold and stitch the cut ends into hems. If you have a sewing machine, this is easy. The reason to do this is because the cut ends will unravel and pull the canvas out of shape. So stitch hems. Then wash the linen to get the size out of it and to do a bit of pre-shrinking. Yeah, I know, you love to stretch dry linen and apply hot glue and make it as tight as a drum. But we're not building drums. Canvases should never be stretched that tight because that causes eventual cracking in the surface as it pulls and shrinks. What works for me is to take the hemmed linen to a professional laundry, where it's first washed and rinsed and then ironed with the same hot rollers used in the factory. Laundries use them for sheets. It doesn't cost much, and knowing you've added a century to the life of your linen should set your mind at ease. Bear in mind that there are two sides to linen, and usually, although not always, one is more finished than the other. Now we go on a hunt for slubs, knots, and bumps. As you can see, the tool I'm using is a common sculpture tool with a sharp tip and a ball tip. This process is called picking, although the reality is we're forcing the raised knots and slubs into the back of the linen. While this will never make it identical to smooth sections of the weave, it minimizes about 80% of the obvious flaws. Proper sizing and applying a ground will make it all but disappear. Once the linen is properly picked, we moved on to stoning. Sounds like a biblical style of public execution, doesn't it? The object is to lightly run a pumice stone over the surface and gently raise the nap. In essence, you're giving the fabric a flannel finish, and you need very little pressure. The purpose of the flannel finish is to allow tiny fibers to stand up and better adhere to the hot glue solution. This adds great strength to the bond and ensures it will never crack. At this point, we apply the hot glue sizing. It goes on in 2 stages. Start by taking the standard 11:1 base glue mixture and thin it in half to 22:1. This is called a drink, and it lightly penetrates the linen. Now, because of the flannel finish, the front surface holds most of the glue, and that ensures that a thick glue can't be driven to the back of the canvas where it forms wicks. There really is a lot to doing this properly, and once you do it, you'll see it all makes sense. Allow the drink to thoroughly dry, usually about an hour or so. Then apply the full-strength 11:1 glue mix. Allow that several hours to dry, and the result? It's a strong barrier coat sitting on the front surface with no glue pressing through to the back. Although this little video can't cover priming, we use an oil-based primer. When dried and fully cured, an oil ground provides a delightful surface, and you'll see the improvement immediately. Those big canvases on the easel are sized with glue and primed with oil primer. Now, before we close, let me pass on a little trick we use in the studio to make serious sketching canvases. We buy commercially stretched cotton canvases. They're inexpensive and acrylic primed at the factory. Here's a batch of about 50 canvases primed with toned oil primer. They're stacked for drying. By putting a thin coat of oil primer over the acrylic primer, we now have a pleasant and safe surface upon which to paint. And you can use colored or white oil primer. As I say, these are for sketching and working out details before committing to a good canvas. Having this many well-primed canvases is a luxury you'll quickly get used to. You'll also start growing as a painter. It's a simple trick, but it pays off big time. This is just a tiny bit of what we have waiting for you in the technical course book. The technical course is packed with every proven studio method and technique, from canvases to brushes to making paints and mediums to gold leaf and, well, you have to go to artbootcamp.com to see the full list. Now, at $1,400 plus travel, lodging, and meals, attending the technical course was not cheap, but all of the attendees said it was well worth it. The technical course book sold for $80, but we just made it digital, so now you can have it for less than half that, and you can download it immediately at artbootcamp.com.